symptomatic.
If you're on a lower powered system, you may want to change this
For
to
cardiac
1280
symptoms,
by
dyspnea.
720.
He was well
Downscale
for the
filter,
next 5 years, and now
bilinear is
he's
the lowest.
he's unwell for the last 3 months.
Okay.
That's one way to present this, because what has happened in the past is very important in the understanding of this case.
Okay, sir.
If you want to just present the present complaints first, then don't go into too many details of the present complaints. Quickly put the examiner and the audience into the picture that you are talking about a prosthetic valve patient.
Okay.
You understand?
Yes, sir.
Till you told us that there was a history of surgery 5 years ago, everybody is thinking of what is this disease. But if you have, once you have told us that there is a prosthetic valvular heart disease known to the patient, then their mind is going in the direction of whatever is the problem now.
Okay.
Okay, so do you have any more history?
No, sir. Only that much, sir.
So just in 3 sentences, tell us the entire history again.
Okay.
Take 3
Sir,
sentences.
Yes, sir. 63-year-old male, known case of hypertension, known case of valvular heart disease, post-valve replacement in October 2018. Now presented with a moderate grade fever for the past 3 months and progressive breathlessness for the past 2 months, which has progressed from NIHA class 2 to class 3 associated with PND for the past 4 days.
So you said that the surgery was in October 18 or 15?
18, sir. 2018. 3 years.
Okay. Then there is some other history also that is important.
Okay.
If you get fever in a patient who has had a prosthetic valve, what are the differentials that you will consider?
Sir, usual fever in a prosthetic. Sir, usually it basically depends if it is.
Now he's getting fever.
Yes, sir.
What are the possibilities?
So now, so the thing is, it basically depends if the patient has developed the fever during the early post-operative phase or if it is during the late period, sir. So this patient is actually presenting nearly 2 years after the surgery.
Okay, good. So you are thinking of endocarditis basically, and you are saying that endocarditis can be early or late.
Yes, sir.
Now
This
here
is a
you are right. You're right that if it is coming after 18 months or 20 months, then it is not early presentation. Early presentation is in how much time?
Sir, according to this thing, it's basically early is less than 1 year, sir. Late endocarditis, prosthetic valve is more than 1 year of duration, sir.
Okay, some people may say 6 months and some people may say 1 year. You can check what the book says.
Yeah.
But if you have a period which is about 1.5 years, as has happened in this case, from October he has had surgery and somewhere 3 months ago he started running fever.
Yes, sir.
The total duration is about 17 months, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
Here you should ask how he did in the post-op. If he gives a history that he had to stay for 2 weeks extra, that they were giving him antibiotics, that he was given 6 weeks of oral antibiotics after his discharge, then the story changes, that you have treated an endocarditis and it has responded, but somehow
and now it probably is a recurrence of infection or something after this.
It can do that, you know, that you treat it and you think you've got rid of it, but it comes back again. So if you have a history which is 17 months, you should describe the post-op period in more detail. If it was absolutely smooth, he went home on the 7th day and he has not given any antibiotics and all, that's a patient who has managed to get late endocarditis after 1.5 years. But if he's been given months and weeks and months of antibiotics, then it may be a slightly different problem.
Okay, sir.
Which are the organisms that come in early endocarditis?
Sir, usually early post-op endocarditis is mostly Staphylococcus aureus and fungal infections, sir. If it is late prosthetic valve
And it,
endocarditis, usually it's the native organ, the common
one
community
second,
acquired
you said
organisms.
you said
Yes, sir.
staphylococcus and which one?
Fungal infections, sir, compared to the most common organism, which is Streptococcus viridans in native valve endocarditis. In early post-op period, it's staph and fungal infections.
So you must answer staph.
Oh,
I think you may be right when you say fungal, but even gram-negative is a problem in the immediate post-op.
okay, sir.
And later on, when they come, the organisms tend to be similar to what you get in native
Native valve
valves.
endocarditis. Yes.
Okay, go on to the physical examination now.
Okay, sir. On general physical examination, patient is conscious, oriented to time, place, and person. He's comfortable in supine position, sir. His BMI is 24.5 kg per meter square. He's ephemeral to touch. There's a pallor. There's no icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy, or pedal edema. His pulse rate is 104 per minute, regular in rhythm, high volume pulse. All peripheral pulses are felt. There's no radial or radiofemoral delay. Blood pressure is around 104 by 60 mm right upper limb, 100 by 60 mm Hg left upper limb, and the lower limb it is 120 mm Hg systolic blood pressure. There's no petechiae or splinter hemorrhages or no peripheral signs of infective endocarditis. JVP is normal respiratory variation. Thyroid, skull and spine are normal. Thyroid is normal. On cardiovascular examination, inspection and palpation together, chest appears bilaterally symmetrical. There's no precordial bulge. Midline sternotomy scar is noted. Suprasternal pulsations are visible. Apex impulse is palpated in the left sixth intercostal space along anterior axillary line. It is sustained type of epexor with medial retraction. There's grade 1 parasternal heave, no epigastric pulsation. There are no palpable sounds or clicks, and there are no associated thrill. And coming to percussion, cardiac borders, right heart border corresponds to retrosternally, and left heart border corresponds to the apex. Left second intercostal space is resonant on percussion. On auscultation, first heart sound is soft. Then so second heart sound A2 is soft. P2 was inaudible, sir. And then there's a high pitched blowing grade 2 early diastolic murmur extending up to 2/3 of diastole, which is heard in the left second and third intercostal space, with the maximal intensity at the left third intercostal space, with the diaphragm of Steth and best heard in leaning forward position and expiration. And there's a low pitched rumbling murmur, a short mid diastolic murmur heard at the apex, with bell of the stethoscope best heard in left lateral position without any presystolic accentuation. No other murmurs are heard, sir, and there's no LVS3 or LVS4. On per abdomen examination, it's soft. There's no hepatosplenomegaly. Bilateral air entry is normal on respiratory examination. There are no crepitations. And on CNS examination, there's no focal neurological deficit.
So you have given us the physical findings. Did you mention the JVP?
Yes, sir. So JVP is not raised, sir. It's not
How
elevated.
do you report? How do you describe the JVP? What is the things that you must tell?
So JVP is not elevated, sir. Normal descents noted, normal variation with respiration, and abdominal jugular reflex is negative, sir.
Okay, good. So you should, when you say JVP, the P stands for what?
Okay, sir.
No, when you say JVP, what does the P stand for?
Sir, I didn't get you, sir.
In JVP, there's a J, a V, and a P. The J stands for jugular and V stands for venous. What does P stand for?
Jugular venous pulse, sir.
Okay. As a cardiologist, when you examine a patient, you must be able to assess the jugular venous pressure also.
Okay, sir.
Isn't it? So
Yes,
here
sir.
you told us that it is normal. That is enough, but it is not the best answer, you should say it is so many centimeters of water.
Okay.
How much was it? What
Sir,
is the normal rate?
So normally it is around 3 to 8 mmHg or 4 to 11 centimeters of water, sir.
See, when you're examining on the bedside,
Mm.
it will not be in millimeters of mercury, it will be in centimeters of water, isn't it?
Water. Yes, sir.
So what is the normal jugular venous pressure?
So it's around 4 to 11 centimeters of water, sir.
Yeah, it's not really 4 to 11. If they are fasting, it is sometimes close to 0 in healthy people.
Okay.
But the upper limit is about 4 or 5 in young healthy people. Although when they were looking at normal pressures 50, 60 years ago when CAT started, they had included some who are hypertensive and some who are 60 and 65. So some of them had up to 6 or 7. So they said 0 to 7 millimeters is normal. But most normal healthy people have pressures from 0 to 5 when they are fasting. Okay?
Okay.
So normal venous pressure, you should first say the jugular venous pressure is normal. It is about 7 centimeters of water or 5 centimeters or 3, whatever you have measured. Then go on to the waveform. Say that both waves are visible and the normal pattern with A more than B is seen.
See. Okay, sir.
Okay.
Mm.
The jugular venous description of the jugular venous pulse is an important part of a cardiologist's job. You must get it right.
Okay, sir.
Now, can you summarize your precordial findings in 2 sentences?
Yes, sir. Sir, there's a midline sternotomy scar noted with a down and out shifted apex, which is felt in the left sixth intercostal space, which is sustained apex. And there's a long extending diastolic murmur, which is high pitched and blowing in nature, extending up to 2/3 of diastole, increasing with expiration or leaning forward in the left second and third intercostal space. And there's a very short mid diastolic murmur, which is heard at the apex without any presystolic accentuation. And the first heart sound is soft, and A2 IT component is also soft. Sir. No additional heart sounds, LVS3 or LVS1.
So did you use the word early diastolic murmur?
Yes, sir.
For your murmur in the base of the heart,
Mm.
you have to clearly use the word early.
Okay, sir.
Don't say diastolic murmur, say early diastolic murmur.
No,
This
I
early
actually had
diastolic murmur, where is this early diastolic murmur coming from?
Sir, it's heard in the left second and third intercostal space, sir.
You examine the case. What is the cause of this murmur?
Sir, it's coming from the aortic valve, sir. Aortic regurgitation.
So it is a murmur of aortic regurgitation. Very good. When does the murmur of aortic regurgitation start?
So usually the murmur of aortic regurgitation starts with A2, sir. So, but usually it says initially, normally, phonocardiographically, if it's recorded, there's a small gap between A2 and the onset of the murmur, because between the aorta and LV after isovolumic relaxation, there's some pressure gradient. So it is usually crescendo type if seen on phonocardiogram, but we won't be able to appreciate that. So when we auscultate, it usually tends to begin with A2.
Good. Your answer, you shouldn't say it starts after the second heart sound. As a cardio, you should say it starts after A2.
Right. Okay.
So, if you have a very prominent early diastolic murmur from aortic regurgitation, then hearing a separate murmur at the apex, which is mid diastolic and rumbling and all, these things are difficult to be sure of. Some components of the murmur may come to the apex.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes, sir. Mm.
So whenever you add a separate murmur, you should be very sure that it is an important part of the examination and the disease process. Don't keep on mentioning everything that you think may be present.
Okay, sir.
So very often people do have 4 murmurs. But your rule should be I present 1 murmur. When I have to, I sometimes present 2 and very rarely I present 3. Do not start making a presentation with 5 or 6 murmurs.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Always make it a rule that I have only 1 murmur. Now, obviously, there are so many patients who have more than 1 murmur. So many times you will present a second murmur. Occasionally, you will present a third murmur. But every additional murmur that you are adding on, the compulsion to do so should be very, very strong, that I cannot omit it.
Okay, sir.
Otherwise, every student presents 5 or 6 murmurs in every case. So what is your diagnosis now?
Sir, this is a post-op case of aortic valve replacement for aortic regurgitation. Now presented with infective endocarditis of so subacute infective endocarditis of prosthetic aortic valve with mild to moderate pulmonary venous hypertension, no pulmonary arterial hypertension in sinus rhythm in NIHA class 2 on treatment. Sir.
Okay, see, when you auscultate a prosthetic valve,
yes, sir.
In a patient who is receiving anticoagulants, you expect it to be a metallic prosthesis.
Sir, he was on anticoagulation only for the first 3 months, sir. After that, he was not on anticoagulation, sir. It was a bioprosthetic
So
valve.
then you should say that he has got a bioprosthetic valve.
Okay, sir.
Your presentation, if you have not got the metallic clicks of mechanical valves, then one part of your diagnosis is that there is a bioprosthetic valve from the auscultation findings. How did you decide that the patient had aortic regurgitation before the surgery? It could have been AS or it could have been AS with AR.
Yeah. So, sir, initially, basically, at the time of surgery, patient was around 60 years old, sir. And then he actually claimed to be asymptomatic all the while. And then only for mild breathlessness and all, he has gone to the hospital. He only had progressive dyspnea. So I was, and the thing based on that, yes, sir. And based on the point that
you cannot make a diagnosis based on this history that the patient was AR. Did you have any other records or did you have any other papers that you had seen that you were so sure?
Yeah. So initially, I mean, from the history point of view, based on the point that the cardiologist who has seen him has told him that there's a severe problem with the valve and he needs early surgery. So I was just contemplating between either a mitral valve or aortic valve regurgitation. Because if it's stenotic valve, usually for that symptom, we don't usually advise immediate surgery to be done. So I thought it probably must be a regurgitant lesion with decompensation.
Yes, Doctor, these are not very strong pointers.
Okay,
the patient had symptoms and he had symptomatic valvular disease and he was advised surgery. This is not uncommon. Not many patients who are symptomatic are told you wait and we will sit on you. Then whether it was aortic valve or mitral valve, how were you able to decide?
Sir, from
only by looking at the previous reports, sir. He may be having a prosthetic mitral valve and he may be having an infection in the aortic valve. How did you decide?
Sir, it is quite possible, sir, but I just thought it's very unlikely when there's a prosthetic valve in one position, the other valve being getting infected.
Why? If a patient has traumatic mitral valve disease, there may be some additional aortic involvement which did not require a change.
Yes.
If the aortic valve is abnormal, it may become infected later. If you have to look at all the possibilities, you cannot be sure whether it's mitral or aortic that was changed. Now you have aortic regurgitation. Your first diagnosis, you are right, that I think the aortic valve was changed and I think it is leaking because of endocarditis.
Okay, sir.
But Other possibilities are open unless you have seen his records. What were you? Which pulses were you looking for in this patient? Which are the pulses that you are able to palpate in the face? When you examine the patient, you are looking for pulses. Which are the palpable pulses in the head?
Sir, bilateral carotid pulse, sir. And
That
then
is in the neck.
Neck, yes, sir.
What are the pulses that are palpable in the head?
Sir, one is the temporal artery can be palpated.
It's called superficial temporal.
Superficial temporal. Okay, sir.
Where is it? Where is it present?
So it's on
Where is the superficial artery? Okay, can you name any other artery in the head and which is palpable? Is looking for pulses in this patient important?
Yes, sir.
But you don't even know which are. Do you know the pulses that you find in the leg? Can you name them?
Yes, sir. Dorsalis pedis, sir, posterior tibial artery, and then popliteal artery and femoral artery pulsations, sir, in the lower limb.
So, which are pulses in the foot apart from dorsalis and posterior tibial? In many people, the peroneal artery is palpable. Where is it located?
Sir, on the medial side, sir.
No, it's lateral to the tibial artery. It is dorsalis pedis and it is anterior to the lateral malleolus. But you should know that these arteries are palpable. When patients come with peripheral vascular disease, we look for these pulses. You're not able to say their name, but doesn't matter. It's not a very commonly asked question. So any question that has not been asked earlier, one tends to sometimes not know it. So this is not a major error, but you should know the name because we look for them in peripheral vascular disease. If you have a mechanical prosthetic valve, how do you decide on auscultation whether it is in the mitral position or the aortic position?
So depending upon the closing sound, sir, if at all it correlates with the first heart sound, it's in the mitral position, sir. If it is correlating with the second heart sound, it's in the aortic position.
Okay, do you want to say this answer? Your answer is probably correct, but do you want to say it again so that everybody understands?
Sir, usually for mechanical valves, closing sounds are better heard than the opening sound. If the closing sound is coinciding with the first heart sound S1, that is usually at the mitral position. If it is coinciding with the second heart sound, it's in the aortic position.
Good. So the closing sound is louder than the opening sound. And from that, you can make out whether it is S1 is loud or S2 is loud and decide which valve. That's a good answer. If you have a early diastolic murmur from aortic valve, can you get early diastolic murmur in the heart from anywhere else?
Early diastolic murmur. So yes, if at all, so prosthetic valves are usually associated with some amount of regurgitation, so intrinsic regurgitation. So that can also produce early diastolic murmur. Like let's say if a mitral prosthetic valve is there, we can have some amount of diastolic murmur there.
No. If there's a mitral prosthetic valve, it is not going to produce an early diastolic murmur.
Just the diastolic.
Aortic regurgitation causes early diastolic murmur. It can be a native valve or a prosthetic valve. Which other condition will cause an early diastolic murmur?
Pulmonary regurgitation. LAD stenosis.
You should be able to say pulmonary regurgitation. In which patients do you commonly see pulmonary regurgitation?
Post-op repair. Post-op repair and
Radha, you have to answer.
Sir,
PNH with PR, sir.
Patients who have got severe PAH, either due to Eisenmenger or due to primary pulmonary hypertension,
pulmonary hypertension.
they often have a PR murmur.
Yes.
It is early diastolic.
Hmm.
When else do you get a PR murmur?
Sir, if at all there's any IV drug abusers or carcinoid syndrome, when usually right-sided heart lesions are present, so tricuspid regurgitation and pulmonary regurgitation can be associated.
Okay, these are not very good answers. You may see
Infective
like that.
Infective endocarditis, sir. And then IDPA, idiopathic dial.
One second. When you see pulmonary regurgitation, common causes are the one that somebody was trying to say earlier in post-op patients of tetralogy of Fallot.
Yes, sir.
If you examine patients who have had a tetralogy of Fallot surgery, they invariably have a PR murmur.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
There's a congenital heart disease in which PR murmur is present from birth till death. What is the name of that disease?
off with absent pulmonary valves.
Let Radha and answer. Who's the other person who's answering? What's his name? Your answer is correct, but let the person who's going through the exam answer it. What is absent pulmonary valve syndrome, Radha?
So talk with absent pulmonary valve syndrome. There's basically absence of pulmonary valve. So it can be either a thick diaphragm or just a muscular membrane which is present in that. So it's usually associated with both pulmonary stenosis and pulmonary regurgitation. So with postnatal
So it's a
dilatation of pulmonary
congenital
artery.
heart.
Congenital heart.
It's a congenital heart disease with PS and PR and very large pulmonary arteries. You're right. What else do you know about this disease? What causes? What is the embryologic process that causes this disease? Anybody in the group who knows the answer? Hello.
Cross dilatation of main pulmonary artery and right and left pulmonary artery.
Okay, I don't know what the answer is, but somebody who's closer to the mic should tell me what is the answer that you are getting from the others. The correct answer is it is caused by congenital absence of the ductus arteriosus. If in the embryological heart there is no ductus formed, then the baby is born with a disease that we call TOF, absent pulmonary valve syndrome. TOF variant. It is not TOF at all. It looks a little bit like TOF because there's VSD, because there's PS. But the embryological reason for the disease is congenital absence of the ductus. Do you understand? Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
What kind of diastolic murmur do you get in patients who have got a tetralogy surgery or an absent pulmonary valve syndrome, Radha? Radha, are you there? Hello?
Yes, sir. She's there, sir. Sir, your voice is breaking in between, sir.
I don't know what the problem is. I'm speaking as loudly as I was earlier.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So
Okay,
what
sir.
is the kind of
Sir,
murmur that you get in
Yeah.
patients with
So your voice is
tetralogy
breaking
post-op?
actually in between.
Sir, the network is the issue, sir. Not.
Is it better now?
Hello?
Yeah, sir. Now it is better, sir.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Hello, can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
Can you
sir.
hear us? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Better.
what is the murmur that you get in patients who have had a tetralogy surgery or who have got absent pulmonary valve syndrome?
So it's basically low pressure pulmonary.
Okay, that's a
murmur
good
which
answer.
starts. Yes. It
That's a
usually
good
starts
answer. You have to say low pressure or normotensive PR, and it is a mid diastolic murmur.
Okay, so yeah, it starts
It's not
after
an early diastolic
second
murmur,
heart
it's a mid diastolic murmur.
murmur.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can hear you, sir.
Something has happened to the. I don't know what's happened.
Some network issue in between, I guess, sir. But now you are quite audible, sir. Muted. Nikhil, sir, has muted himself.
Yeah, sir, you're muted, sir. You have to unmute.
Okay, sorry, I don't know how. Fine. Now is it better?
Sir, yes, sir, better, sir. Where the network is strong, sir, like we can speak there, sir.
No,
There
the network may not be the problem. There is something happening with the way I'm holding the phone or something. Anyway,
okay,
so how will you look after this patient?
Okay, he's talking on the phone with your highlight.
Sir, in this patient, first I would want to assess him, send blood cultures, and then ECG, and then echocardiogram. After transthoracic echocardiogram, if needed, I will want to do a transesophageal echocardiogram also, sir. And then basically look for the amount of regurgitation, look for the presence of vegetation, the size of the vegetation, and if maybe an abdominal screening, and look for any peripheral embolic manifestations, and then manage accordingly.
So your answer has two important components. One is you should take good cultures.
Good cultures, yes, sir.
Right?
Yes, sir.
The second is to look at the disease process with echocardiography.
Yes,
How
sir.
is prosthetic valve endocarditis different from native valve endocarditis in echocardiography?
So sir, in prosthetic valve endocarditis, usually the vegetation, so it can basically present in the form of either a leaflet perforation or fistula, or it can be formation of abscess, and or it can be near the suture line as a dehiscence of the prosthetic valve annulus. Sir. So we need to usually look for that thing.
Yes, so if it is a mechanical prosthesis, the regurgitation will be due to dehiscence of the ring.
Yes.
Although occasionally there can be some material which is preventing the valve disc from closing, more often it is a paravalvular leak.
Yes.
Vegetations are not the main pathology. The main pathology is
The
annular abscesses.
Yes.
No, the abscesses at the suture line. So they are called ring abscesses.
Yes.
So when you do a transesophageal for a prosthetic valve endocarditis, you are looking for abscesses along the suture line.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Does this patient require another surgery?
Sir, It depends on his response to antibiotic treatment, and then depends upon the severity of leak and the size of the vegetation on the echocardiogram, sir. So if the size of the vegetation
No,
is
this
more
is
than
not the same thing. See, the criteria for this is not going to be the same as they are for the native valves. And in native valves also, the biggest indication for surgery is what?
so hemodynamic decompensation is an indication for urgent
Yes,
surgery.
your patient getting orthopnea and class 3 and all that,
Yes.
you'll almost definitely have to think of resurgery.
Redo surgery.
How much antibiotics to give before you take the patient for surgery, that
Mhm.
can change from one doctor to the other. But if the patient is going into CHF, you should not wait.
Okay, sir.
No patient of endocarditis going into CHF should be asked to wait. They often die.
Around
Can you
20%
hear me?
mortality. Yes, sir. I can hear you. Sir.
In fact, the mortality of endocarditis improved after people started changing valves before the patient goes into intractable CHF.
Okay, sir.
Okay, you've done well. I think that's enough for today.
Okay, sir. Sir, you want to see the echo pictures of this patient? We have some videos, sir. 3-4 just videos.
Sure. Go ahead and show it to me.
Okay, sir.
Where will it come? Do I have to press any button?
We will just share it on the screen, sir. Nikhil, can you just share that video?
Okay.
Yes.
Show us the X-ray, ECG, and echo, or whatever you want to, and let's do it quickly.
Yes. So just a minute, sir. We are sharing it on the screen.
Sure. What are you expecting to see in the ECG?
Sir, I don't have the ECG of this patient, but then usually I'm expecting to look for volume overload features, sir. So basically, what is it? QVOs with tall R complexes in V5, V6, 1 AVL. Volume overload pattern.
Say features of LVH with volume
With
overload.
volume
isn't
overload
it?
pattern. Yes, sir.
What are you expecting to see in this patient on chest X-ray?
So we have the chest X-ray of the patient here, sir. So this, what
You can
is it?
show it.
You can see it, sir, on the
Otherwise, you
screen.
take the X-ray.
So can you see it on the screen, sir? The chest X-ray.
Yeah, I can see it. Can you report this X-ray, please?
Yes, sir. So this is chest X-ray PA view, sir. Normal positioning and normal penetration. The trachea is central, and then what is it? There's cardiomegaly, sir. Apex looks LV type of configuration, and there's increased bronchiovascular markings, sir, with even upper lobar prominence and very prominent vascular markings in the hilar area and in the bilateral lower zone, sir, which is suggestive of pulmonary edema, sir. Pulmonary venous hypertension.
So there's mild cardiomegaly with a CT ratio of about 55 to 60.
Yes, sir.
Within the cardiac cillet, which is the chamber which is abnormal?
Left ventricle, sir. LV.
So all that is not very clear cut. It is
Okay.
looking left ventricle, you're right. But what is definite is that the aorta is enlarged.
Enlarged.
Can you
Yes.
see that the aortic knuckle is much bigger
It's
than
more
what we
prominent.
normally see?
Yes, sir.
Then you are reading that there is increase in bronchovascular markings and it suggests some degree of PVH and pH is correct. Go on to the echo.
Yes.
Somehow we can't see any sternal wires and all, which are very common findings in patients where
so few sternal valves
you
are
can see
noted,
them.
sir. Like, yes, sir. It's there.
And can you see what will you see in the prosthetic valve if it is a bioprosthesis? What do you see on the X-ray?
Sir, we'll be
What do
able
you
to
see
see
on the
this. Sir,
X-ray?
if it is a stented bioprosthesis, we'll be able to see the stent, sir.
So you'll see a metal ring.
Ring, yes, sir.
And if it's a free allograft then you will not see anything in the
Anything.
prosthesis.
Yes, sir.
Okay, tell us the echo now.
So this is a parasternal long axis view. Basically, LV looks dilated, and LA looks normal in size here, and the mitral valve structure looks normal. So aortic valve, there's some hyperechoic area at that root, which is indicative of presence of bioprosthesis. So there's a small vegetation near the leaflets, which is just flipping movement is seen with the movement. So it's better seen in other views. Yeah, here.
Go to the next view. Here you should be able to say that the left ventricle is enlarged.
Enlarged, yes.
You are able to, if you are sure that the aortic valve is abnormal, then you have to comment on that. Next.
Okay. So this is apical four-chamber view, sir. Yeah, there is moderate to severe aortic regurgitation, and there's some.
So what is the direction of the jet?
So it's towards the interventricular septum. So it's little eccentric, sir. It doesn't look completely central here.
Yes, so it's hugging the anterior ventricle. Yes. If you get a mid-diastolic murmur from the mitral valve because of AR, what is the direction of the jet? You get a Austin Flint murmur, what is the direction of the jet?
So it will be lateral only, sir. Posteriorly directed.
No, posteriorly towards the anterior mitral leaflet.
Okay. Yeah, so the jet will be posteriorly directed also, coming from towards the murmur.
So it will partially close the valve and make it flutter, and that causes the mid-diastolic sound.
Diastolic murmur. Yes.
Show the next view.
Next view. So in this view, the vegetation is seen, sir.
Well, something abnormal is seen for sure. I'm not able to get the structures as well as you are.
This thing. So size of the vegetation was around 1.6 into 0.6 centimeters.
Okay.
16 into 6.6. And aortic regurgitation PHT was around 175 milliseconds.
Suggesting what?
Suggesting severe aortic regurgitations.
Okay.
We only have this much, sir. Echo only those many are there, sir. I just took a few views.
If you were looking for other things, what else would you look at?
Other valves, sir.
So you would look at the other valves to make sure that where can the vegetations go from aortic regurgitation?
So systemic embolization
can happen. Posteriorly directed jets, it can come to the mitral valve.
Mitral.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
If the jet is posteriorly directed, it may cause vegetations to start occurring on the mitral valve, and that also gets infected.
Okay, sir.
You would look for some assessment of the right-sided pressures if you are able to get a TR or PR signal. What else would you look at? You could look at the flow reversal in the aorta for the severity of AR.
Yeah, for holodastic flow reversal, sir.
Okay. So do you think this patient needs surgery or he can be treated medically?
I think he needs surgery, sir.
Yeah, this is very severe AR, and then when there is a Paravalvular leak, stitches can start giving way one after the other, and suddenly the patient can become very sick.
Okay.
In a bioprosthesis valve, sometimes the leaflet gets damaged and it is not a paravalvular leak. You should have actually, when you are doing the echo, try to see where the regurgitation is from. Is it from the leaflets or is it from the
Paravalvular. So he is having from the leaflet only, sir.
Okay, so that's very common with bioprosthetic valves, but in metallic valves, it will invariably be from the paravalvular area. Okay, we have done well. I think we'll wind up for
Thank you,
today. Thank you for being there, and you've done a good job.
Thank you, sir. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.